Tabletopped will start after the following messages.
When four strangers meet for the first time, they unknowingly begin to unravel tightly kept secrets about their worlds. This place sucks. This realm sucks.
I don't mean to interrupt, but maybe speak about portals a little quieter?
You know how some people aren't really into science and magic mixing together?
That's just a story. Portals haven't existed for hundreds of years.
Armed with little true knowledge, but unfathomable curiosity, these four strangers set out in search of answers and form an unlikely bond.
I do see you, and I'd like to think that I'll be there when you're ready to talk about it.
He kind of relaxes for the first time around the group.
You keep putting yourself in danger for others, but who puts themselves in danger for you?
Join Ivy, Varys, Alara, and Ziva as they dive headfirst into the unknown. Follow us at Rainbow Dice Club on your favorite streaming platform, and find us at Rainbow Dice Club wherever you get your podcasts. Do you trust me?
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Tabletopped, and gosh golly gee, today I am so excited. I have one of my favorite creators in the TTRPG space here on the pod today, Grant Nordine. You may know him from Bella's Comment. You may know him from streaming. You may know him from, Game Master Monday, the flagship podcast he makes. But you also might know him because he's a pretty cool guy. Grant, come on down. How are you today?
Oh my God, I got a Price is Right intro. Oh my shit.
Absolutely.
This is amazing. No, that was awesome. Thank you for hyping me up. Holy shit. They can't see my face, but I'm like grinning from ear to ear, like, I'm one of his favorites. It's nice.
Hey, you deserve it. I want to talk about why first that I really love your stuff. One is because Game Master Monday, kind of from its inception, has been doing some work that like we at Tabletopped are really into and have also been kind of trying to do, I would say less successfully, which is bringing people's attention to the indie TTRPG space. A lot of the stuff that you guys do is like all about hyping up new TTRPGs, new creators, showcasing what it's like to play these things, but all in like really digestible actual play, like mini series. How did you kind of get started in the Game Master Monday idea, and like where did it come from?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't say you're less successful than us, because I listen to a lot of Tabletopped and have blatantly stolen from this show a handful of times, for the record. So
there's a lost episode that, oh God, it was so frustrating. We record this whole thing. It was a great conversation that we were talking about the topic of sort of like festivals, like making festivals and holidays in TTRPGs and how to run them. And I just like blatantly stole the mechanic from the current right now Golden Galaxy race system.
Fuck yeah.
Which is like the card flipping, and I was like, yeah, like this is such a cool system. You can do sort of like a Fast and the Furious style festival by making a track of playing cards, and then like as people choose routes, you flip them, and that is like what happens in them. And like all of that idea came from playing and listening to the show. So like that was, you know,
Look at
we
us.
Steal from each other.
Look
and
at us.
It's great. Look at us.
Who thought
we'd ever get here?
Not me.
So like how did you kind of get started with Game Master Monday? What was the idea that started you down the path of making this show?
Yeah, so Game Master Monday is kind of attempt number 3 for me for trying to get something like this off the ground. I started listening to TTRPG podcasts, I want to say like just before the pandemic started. There was an artist I was very interested in who out of nowhere started a D&D podcast. and I was like, oh, I did not know that D&D was cool and fun this whole time. I just was assuming you all were a bunch of nerds meeting in your
Yeah.
mom's basement. As if I wasn't, like whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
But so I came up with that idea, and then because I love attention, I started pitching ideas to friends. Like I wanted to do like a long form D&D podcast at one point. I wanted to do like a monthly version of what we're doing right now, which was just an excuse to get my friends to play D&D with me, but like in a kind of smaller setting. And then just over time, I just started meeting and talking to all these cool creators in the space who are making like genuinely cool shit outside of D&D, which side note, for a person coming into the hobby, I didn't realize there's more than one thing. I thought it was all different flavors of D&D.
Yeah.
So to this day, my folder for where I keep all my indie RPGs, this has been called D&D shit for so long. I know better now, but I can't change the name. So I get to Game Master Monday kind of by virtue of meeting up with Rena, who helps Keeper for the Old Ways podcast.
Mhm.
And they made a game called Saturday the 14th, which is a Call of Cthulhu one-shot deal. And that really just like lit the fire in my brain. And I was like, we could do just a whole bunch of one-shots, highlight these cool creators that I'm meeting and liking, and just play their games. I think if you're a creator, like you can do interviews and talk shows all you want, but if you hear or see someone playing your product, like that is the thing that feels the most amazing, right? So that's kind of where I came from. And look at us now. We've been doing this for a little over a year. We've really met and partnered with a lot of cool people. Like, it blows my mind how far the show has come in 1 year.
Yeah, I mean, recently you released a sort of like a state of the pod episode where
Yeah.
you were talking about where you're going in the next year. And after this, I really want to dive into the TTRPGs that you've sort of like come into contact with and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. But one thing that I was really excited about for folks who were developers was that you're pretty much opening the gates even more formally, where you're having a submission process where people can get you their games so that they can play them on the podcast and show people what it's all about.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that, and also like the rules and regulations around it? Because I know that you kind of have like specific ways that you're going to go about that.
Boy, I'd love to, because by the time this goes up, we should be opening that gate, actually. So,
Amazing.
beginning of 2024, I guess that's the best way to put it. We're opening the floodgates, if you will, and we are putting a submissions channel on the Game Master Monday Discord, which, if you haven't joined our Discord, by the way, I dare say it's the hottest place on the internet. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of cool creators and podcasters there. My biggest success story is two people met in our Discord and then made a game together, and then we streamed that game. So like,
Hell yeah.
that's the kind of flavor we're bringing here. It's also just a weird place, super weird. If they start talking about cloacas on there, it's not my fault. They're just a bunch of weirdos there. But as far as the submissions channel goes, I get DMs tagged and stuff all the time, from people who've worked with us before, who've heard our show, et cetera, and I'm a people pleaser, and it's hard for me to say no, which is why I have a co-producer now. But we're opening a submissions channel on our Discord where we're looking for specific flavors that fit our vibe, and it gives us a more concentrated place to find all those things, because I can get lost in my email and my Twitter DMs and all that shit, so I'd rather have it there. Rules and guidelines. If you're not familiar with our vibe, hi, we're cool. Come listen to our show. But if you are familiar, you know that we do one shots. We try to keep them within like 2 hours. Sometimes we'll go over. I'm not a stickler for it, but like for me and my co-producer Sanity, 2 hours for editing is fine. We like games that have a GM for the most part, because we're a Game Master Monday, but we also play some GM-less stuff on the show. Coming up, we actually have a GM-less game that we're playing in, like, I want to say early February. We're playing Lost Guide Games, their game Neon Shadows. So we do GM-less, but we prefer with a GM. And those are the two main things I look for like simplicity of running something. Like the shorter the better is always good because of our fast turnaround time, but I'm open to bigger games. A lot of this is like, here's my rule, but I'm flexible, like if something really like grabs my attention and shakes me, then I can't stop thinking about it. Then, I'll make exceptions. But, for the most part, we like short games. We like games with GMs. We do ask that creators don't ask to run or play the game with us.
Yeah,
Only,
can we talk about that for a
yeah,
second? Because like
yeah.
that is something that like I'm super interested in the idea behind it. And I totally agree with the way you guys are going about it, because in my mind, it gives a more pure sense of what a table will feel like when you're playing a game like this. So it gives the listener a little bit more of a better understanding of like how they will interact with the game, rather than the creator having like such a thorough understanding of the rules. But can you decide like how you kind of came upon that rule? Did you have certain episodes where you're like, yeah, let's like throw it to someone else to run for the thing, or were you just like, this is just something we're not interested in from the start?
Yeah, it's a little column A, a little column B. Like you hit the nail on the head. A lot of it is we want the audience to know what it's like to play your game, because they're not going to have you in the room with them when they download it or pick it up. They're not going to be like, oh, well, Nick Perrin made this game. Let me push this button real quick so he can arrive in our living room and run it for us so we don't fuck it up,
Yeah.
But that was the other side of that coin. Is I, being a creator, am very precious with my baby.
Yeah.
And I know if I like turned, like, even if I give Game Master Monday over to our co-GM, my sister Jenny, like sometimes I hear, you're going to run this episode. And even knowing who I am, in the back of my head, I'm like, oh my God, what if she breaks everything? What if she ruins her reputation and I have no control over it?
Yeah.
And I get that anxiety as a creator, and I don't want the creator to come into a space being like, I have to nail this and make sure my product is represented right. And I don't want the players to be like, if I fuck up, the creator's going to be mad at me like right here and now.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is like, you are selling your game. Let us show you how we are going to interpret it, play it. Some people out there like me might be real blatant home brewers, so that might play a little part of it too. So we ask you to just, hand it over. We're very funny. We're very talented people. I always feel weird saying that, but I'm like, you can trust us. I know
Yeah.
we know what we're doing. So that's the big reason why. It's nothing personal. I never had a bad experience. We've had GMs, or not GMs, we have players come on the show where they have made their game, and it was a great experience. I have nothing bad to say about that. But as we were coming up with the idea, we were like, there's probably going to be a lot of people who are going to be like, I can run it for you if you want. And we have to be like, no, we don't want that. So this is me getting ahead of myself, being like, just blanket statement here. We got it. We're good writers. We're good performers. We won't break your game to the point where it becomes unrecognizable. I promise. So just, let go, let God, I say.
Yeah. So in your time kind of interfacing with all these indie TTRPGs, one of the biggest things that I hear from folks moving away from D&D, like you said, a lot of people, they see D&D as this sort of like obelisk that they're like, this is the thing that we do. And I was talking to, I think it was Fern Milton with Cobblepath Games, who's a really wonderful designer. And she was saying how it's sort of like everyone tries to take like a circular, like D&D shaped peg and just like try to slam it through like any sort of genre or whatever that they're trying to do, like whatever story they're trying to tell, they just like take the D&D tool and be like, I think that I can make like fit this in there. But in your like experience kind of going through all of the different types of TTRPGs, how can people like start trying to branch out from D&D? Like, how did you start kind of experiencing other things? And I think that the big wall that people face is like, how do I learn all these rules and feel comfortable running them? And as somebody who does this week to week, how is your experience in that? And what would you say to those folks who are kind of afraid of branching out a little bit?
Fear not, my child, is the first thing I would say. No, you're totally right. I mean, that's the main thing because like D&D is a very flexible system. Like that's the
Yeah.
reason why people try to shove every possible type of genre and story into it because you can. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, like Wizards of the Coast has their own shady shit. Like we can critique the company all they want, but like
Yeah.
the game itself that's by design. So if you're looking for a way to branch out from that, or maybe the D&D rules are way too complicated, because listen, they're way too complicated for fucking me. I'm like, this is
Yeah.
blah. There's like half that book I don't fuck with. And at that point, and I think that's the thing. I think people start to leave that game because they're like, I'm not doing movement rules. I'm not bothering with item weight. I'm not bothering with, well, I don't like how this mechanic for warlocks work and wasn't a homebrew it.
Hmm.
And, one of my creator friends, like if you're going to homebrew D&D to make it work for your story anyway, you may as well try something else.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of cool resources you can do to do that. Drive through RPG is where I got my start looking for stuff because I was looking for D&D one shots, and then I
Hmm.
end up finding things like Call of Cthulhu. I find Pathfinder. I find Lost Among the Stars, Alone Among the Stars. I find it there. I find all these other great games and stuff, and I start learning them like, oh, these are all different from that thing. And then you
Yeah.
start learning about one-page RPGs, and it's a whole downward slide from there. But
Into the TTRPG abyss.
right. Then you have a whole folder full of 100 games, and you're like, oh shit, I gotta do this show for 5 years to even finish the folder off.
Yeah.
But the real answer for how do I learn more and how do I deep dive into different types of RPGs, honestly, it's social media.
Yeah.
Every cool thing I found hasn't been of my own volition. It's been because one of my friends retweeted a Kickstarter that sounded cool. It's been I was scrolling aimlessly on Instagram and one of my sponsored ads showed me something cool. It's I talked to a whole bunch of people who are in the hobby who recommended me cool stuff. Like if I never meet Rena from Old Ones, I never learn about Call of Cthulhu. I never
Hmm.
dive further into their show and learn about the other horror type games they play. And then I learn about other podcasters out there, like Dude, Where's My Drift, who's playing Starfinder. So that's how I learn
Yeah.
about that. And I find all sorts of amazing people playing and running and making amazing things. So honestly, just like pay attention to social media and see what catches your attention. I promise you, whatever you're looking for, something exists for it. We are in a TTRPG golden age right now because the
Yeah.
hobby is exploding.
Yeah, I think that that's exactly right. And also, to kind of add on, there are like you said, drive through RPG, but there's also like lots of itch pages. There's
Love
like
itch. I
just
live on
like
itch.
yeah, exactly. There's stuff all around, and also like we recently had in our kind of game group, we were doing some like shorter, like 5 session campaign kind of
Yeah,
stuff, and we were looking to do a cyberpunk campaign, and in the end we did this sort of cyberpunk module that like kind of hacks D&D to do that.
sure.
But like in the process of getting to that place, you can just like type in like cyberpunk genre TTRPG and then just start looking. In your case, you are very much like a storyteller based TTRPG player. It
Yeah.
feels like you're. Some people really play for more of like a wargaming or tactical experience. There are games that are very good at that kind of border on board games, like the Arkham
Warhammer.
Horror. Yeah, Warhammer, the Arkham Horror card game is another
Yep.
one where it's like very mechanical and all that stuff. If people are looking for like specific types of modes of play, do you have systems that you kind of go to, or do you have sort of genres like the Apocalypse? Powered by the Apocalypse is very much a narrative type of system, but there's also like Fate. There's the
Yeah.
20 systems, there are D10 systems like in Blades in the Dark. Do you kind of gravitate towards one kind of system or another?
I do, but I try to avoid that impulse.
Yeah.
I was raised in playing D&D, so my brain goes there a lot automatically. But I'm also very frequently drawn to Call of Cthulhu,
Yeah.
very frequently, because that's if you like a good mix of role play and like a hint of crunch, there's like a lot you can do with Call of Cthulhu,
Yeah.
but you're just a guy in Call of Cthulhu. Call of Cthulhu isn't like you have these powers and they work this way and you can cast this spell. It's like, no, 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 no. You're a regular person. Here's what you know.
Yeah.
You can die very easily. And like, I'm very drawn to things where I don't have to do a lot of thinking or checking a rule book.
Yeah.
My favorite system right now that I cannot stop thinking about ever since we wrapped Bella's Comet is Momedo's Arc Doom system.
Yeah.
God, beautiful fucking game, and it's the art's amazing. The narrative that it lets you tell is incredible. That game really caught my eye off the bat because it's on a timer,
Yeah.
which is really cool if you're like in your mid 30s and all your friends have like jobs and kids and
Yeah.
other shit, and you don't have a lot of time to do a whole ass D&D campaign. Arc is very much so like, hey, 4 sessions, they have to end at 90 minutes
Mm-hmm.
or your world explodes, and that's cool.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of Morkborg?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I'm actually
Morkborg
reading Morkborg right now.
Yeah, I recently came across it as well, and I was like going through one. I'm just like super into the developer's philosophy around like you can basically get it for like either free online in PDFs, or if you
Yeah.
want the fucking badass art in that book, it's like $20. It's really great. And one of the things that really attracted me to that system, like you said, is sort of the clock that they have built into it with the prophecy mechanic. Oh my God, it's so cool. Like they have for the listener, it's sort of like you decide with your players how often you want to roll on this prophecy dice, essentially. And if you hit certain numbers, the next part of the prophecy is revealed that will fundamentally change the world. One of my favorite ones is, and lo, the water, the sinful water turned to tar. And then for the rest of the game, you cannot find water. There is only tar.
It's so cool. Morkborg is so cool and so fucking brutal. Like
Yeah.
that's so up my alley as like a storyteller. This would make it sound like I'm really fucking mean to players, but I'm really not. I just really like mechanics that put like a real world applicable stress on you that make the game and the story you're telling have that much more weight and gravity to it.
Yeah, I think so too. I kind of feel as though recently I've realized, because I've been playing a high lethality D&D campaign, and I've been really enjoying it because it allows me to take big swings with a character because I can be like, this might mean that this character doesn't survive this episode, and that's like pretty okay. I have like 5 more, but like story wise, this is going to be like a really dope thing that happens. And I realized by doing that what I want from my storytelling in TTRPGs, and I feel like I see this sentiment in a lot of places. People are like, I want high lethality, I want like that OSR danger, I want all of these things. I think what they want is just like a feeling of real world consequences, but in a storytelling way. What do you think about that, and like how do you approach that in games?
We're all sick fucks. That's why, you know. We're all just like, hurt me more, daddy. No,
yeah.
I mean, if you want the philosophical answer, I think it's because life is so fucking hard in everywhere all the time because of government. So we're really drawn to games and titles where there's like an anti-authoritarian vibe to it, and the world's kind of brutal because we as people want to overcome that and win that story, you know? Like no one's going into your high lethality D&D game but like, oh boy, I can't wait to fucking be sad and carry the weight of my burdens into role play and make believe. Like at our core, we all want to overcome and beat that feeling. So, you get games like Morkborg that are coming out. You have game makers out there like Thought Punks who are making these really fucking cool, badass, brutal, violent games where there's literally a game they just released and I'm itching to play it called Dick Punch Every Suit. Which is about exactly what you think it's about.
Yeah.
And it's so cathartic and I can't wait to try it. But like that's been the vibe for a lot of things. Even like watch the the actual play media that we're consuming lately. Like D20 has always been on the pulse of anti-authoritarian nonsense, like
Yeah.
every actual play has like, no one's coming in doing a fucking right wing, like our governments are cool D&D podcast and we should just listen to the Dragon on the Hill, like, no, this is what we're craving as people.
Yeah, I really like that. I think that art kind of reflects the era we're in, so I totally agree
Haha.
with what you're saying. And there's also because I'm a huge acting and theater nerd, I'll
Hey.
take a little sidebar that like theater of the oppressed is all about this stuff, where you create art and theater with people being willing participants in the piece that prepares them to deal with the hard knocks of real life.
No, you're totally right. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
exactly. And it's like, and I've always thought that TTRPGs at their core is sort of like a teaching game in some weird way, where it like trains our brains to be ready for weird stuff, and trains our neural pathways. So like, there are people who don't feel like heroes in their life, and so they go into these games and they be the hero so that they can prove to themselves that like, yes, this is possible, and then they can take that back out into their real life as well.
Yes.
Maybe that's just me kind of looking for the silver lining in these, but I really
mean,
hold
like,
on to that.
It's fucking where I'm at, like that's listen, as a person who grew up religious, who felt like he was a constantly moving chess piece on some invisible guy's board,
Yeah.
being able to run and tell countless stories where I am the guy moving the chess pieces on the board.
Yeah.
That's cathartic for me, where we're all dealing with something that's haunted us for a long time, and we're looking for the patterns, we're looking for the things that break through from that, and those are the stories we like to tell and participate in. You very kindly brought it up for me, but the mini series we've been doing, Golden Galaxy Race, which is played in Alone Among the Stars, that is very much so the guiding philosophy for what I wanted to do with that story. For those who aren't in the know, Alone Among the Stars is a solo role-playing game that's for journaling purposes,
Mhm.
where you are discovering and writing down planets you discover via a d6 and a deck of 52 dice. Because my brain is poison, I've been trying to find the story in that for, I feel like, years. 'Cause I've had this game for years and I've played it and it's so nice and like relaxing.
Mhm.
And then because I'm also a theater and history nerd, I find this real actual race that happened called the Golden Globe Race,
Mhm.
which is a similar concept to what we do in the story. So the Golden Globe Race was, you are one guy on one boat and you have to sail this route along the Atlantic Ocean, the fastest by yourself on like a little dingy, like single sail ship. And it sucked. Like, wow, what a bad idea.
Yeah.
But, that turned into Golden Galaxy Race when I put one person on one spaceship in this system and they have to get back to Earth the fastest. And I want people like dealing with the complications of like, why would I want to put my body and mind through that test? Like, what are the circumstances that would happen in? What would actually happen to me? And give the players control of that story. So,
Mhm.
I feel like training people to encounter like, isolation and loneliness has been kind of our country and world's vibe for the last 3 years. So why not put that in space and see what happens and give the player the wheel, so to say.
Absolutely. And we'll talk
Also, Nick's
more...
on it, so go listen to that.
Yeah, it's coming out. If it hasn't come out already, it's coming out in the next few weeks from when this episode is released. And we'll talk a little bit more about games and maybe from a designer's perspective right after this break.
Some stories are epic tales for the ages, hours of content, sprawling narratives that pull you in and consume years of your life.
This isn't one of those stories.
Join the creators of Game Master Monday and Slay the Stars with a special guest from Lost Guide Games as they take you on a journey of hope and desperation.
Using the Arc Doom TTRPG system, Bella's Comet is nothing like you've experienced so far.
Because there's a twist.
And the clock is ticking.
Episode 1 of Bella's Comet releases on October 4th. Listen in on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey everyone, it's your host Nick, back again to tell you about something that I am super passionate about. It's answering your questions, and man, we would love to do so in the new year. If you want to, you can go to our website, tabletoppod.com, and on the front page, you scroll down, there is a contact form. You fill it out with your burning questions for us, the hosts, and we will respond in the podcast. Just let us know if we can use your name, and we will answer your question to the best of our ability. So if you're interested, head to our website at tabletoppod.com, scroll down on that front page, and leave us a message from the contact form. We love doing mailbag episodes, and we can't wait to answer your questions in the new year. Welcome back, everyone. We're here talking with Grant Nordine of Game Master Monday and Bella's Comet. Comet.
Bella's Combat is our sequel series where
exactly.
have them all rip each other's spines out.
It's the death match that we've all wanted. Do you remember when Bella threw Comet off of the Hell in the Cell in 1990? Yeah. Anyway, so we're back and we're talking about Indie TTRPGs. We're talking about the podcast. We're talking about our experience with it. I want to talk a little bit now, Grant, about from the lessons that you maybe are able to kind of impart to people who are designers who are looking to make new games and how to engage with people. You are kind of at this point an expert. You've played a ton of different TTRPG games. You know what sort of like tends to work, what tends to not when it comes to like designers trying to input stuff into the game. What is your kind of high level, this is the lesson that I've learned from playing all of these games about like, don't put this in your fucking game, or like, this fucking rocks, do this more?
My high level knowledge, absolutely, with my goofy little comedy TTRPG show. I've learned what works great for me from a content standpoint. So kind of take a little bit of what I say with a grain of salt, because sometimes my philosophies will clash with folks who want to write big epic games, and I get that. Mm-hmm. I feel personally like less is more in everything. Whether you're a writer, actor, game designer, whatever you're out there aspiring to be, less is always more. See, I'm like cycling through the Rolodex in my brain trying to make sure I don't like piss anyone off. But so there's two different types of things I see.
Let's end this career right now, Grant.
Here we go. You can cancel me on the following social medias. Please get rid of me. I can finally rest. My wife will stop looking at my calendar and going, "You're recording on how many days?" Anyway. No, so here's the Grant School of Design. Take it if you like it. I'm cool. Yeah. If you don't like it, I get it. I feel like there's two different things two categories, if you will, of TTRPG. And one is building a system from scratch where you're implementing rules for dice, cards, what have you. Yeah. And the other side of that is you're taking an existing system and you're making a module for it. You're wanting to write your own story that will be played in this system. And to be fair, a lot of systems will start as this, like Thirsty Sword Lesbians was a game that I love, grew from Powered by the Apocalypse, right? Yeah. So sometimes that also happens. And I'm mostly focusing on these two schools of thought, if you will. I'm personally not a module guy. I am the guy who will homebrew a thing to death. I am the person who's like, I have the story first, and then I'm going to find the system that works for that story I want to tell. Sometimes I find the story in the system, but more often than not, I'm trying to find what works for something. So I'm not a module expert by any
Yeah.
means. Jenny's way better at that. Interview her on Tabletop if you want to talk more modules. And
Absolutely.
the art of telling someone else's story, it's not my forte.
Yeah.
If you're building a system and you're thinking that you have to make it as robust as Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder or Fate Core or any of that stuff, you don't. I promise.
Yeah.
I feel like more people are looking for ease of play than complication of play. So, some people out there are like Dark Souls fans and they want to be hurt. So hurt them if you want to. Me personally, I'm like, can I get a handle on this quickly so I can play it as fast as possible? That's my first school of thought is you don't need too much in there because I feel like that's the folly of a lot of really great designs. I'm reading a game right now that I won't name drop because I don't want to sound mean.
Yeah.
But there's a really cool mechanic in there with how they roll dice and how you can collect dice over the course of the story and make your horde like huge, and you can roll like 20 dice at a time.
Yeah.
And that's exciting to me. And then there's so many fucking tables in the game for like, okay, roll this many dice, have them find the 3 highest ones, calculate this, read this graph really quick to see what dice means what when this dice is with it. And it's like, my guy, give me the wheel. I'm fine.
Yeah, I think that I really resonate with that quite a bit because one thing that I find a lot with TTRPGs is that, and there's nothing wrong with this from a design perspective, and in a lot of ways it can focus the game to be able to tell a certain genre of story. But a lot of these games like City of Mists and to some extent like Monster of the Week and definitely like Morkborg and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
They come with a setting in mind. They come with sort of like a pre-packaged sort of like, this is the world. Some more than others. Like City of Mists is very much like, this is how the world works. And this is what happens. And you should play this in a city because otherwise it's not going to really work very well. And there's a lot to be said for like specificity. All art thrives with specificity. I love that. But to your point, like I think that designers, if I were to give you like one bit of advice, I think I would agree very much with Grant that if you have a mechanic and it's really fun, sometimes that's enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
1 or 2 fun ones. Honestly, like if you can find like 1, 2, 3 if you're feeling frisky, like that's going to keep a lot of people going. D&D has endured all these years because the main thing you know about it is you do a D20 for almost everything.
Yeah, it literally only has one mechanic, which is roll a dice, yes or no, which is like really crazy.
And it's a big dice. There's like a lot of variation in there. That's why it endures. It's not because of knowing where the fuck Waterdeep is.
Yeah.
Like no one gives a shit if I'm being real. It's like I can do anything I want in that system because a D20 is a big fucking dice and it's a magic 8-ball basically.
Yeah.
So like that's fun. Find your magic 8-ball.
Yeah, and if I'm going to criticize like this sort of obsession with D&D a little bit, D20s as a variance thing, it is actually way too high variance because if you think about when you think about a D20, you have basically a 50-50 shot of getting a number under a 10 or a number above a 10. But it really, if you are a character at like the 15th level or something and you're supposed to be really good at something, rolling a thing that does not give a shit about how good you are at it and then like adding stuff to it is like actually it adds a lot of variance. So there's like so many good systems out there that kind of fuck with that a little bit and make it a little bit more towards like a storytelling first kind of thing rather than a test your luck sort of thing.
If you want to make a dice rolling game and like you want to like really like stand out and set yourself apart, I love games that use a D6 or a D12 system. Two great fucking dice to use for those. There's a game we ran on the show. And okay, this is setting specific. It's really hyper specific.
Yeah.
So this might be alienating, but it appeals to me. So whatever. It's called Play Ball. It's a baseball themed TTRPG. It
Yeah.
uses a D12 system, and it's kind of working on persona logic. If you've ever played those video games
Yeah, totally.
where half of your stats are for being good at school and doing like social stuff if you're in high school or college, because that's the setting. You are a student who wants to be a baseball player. Then the other half of your stats are for baseball specifically. So that there's not like a lot of like intertwining or marriage of the two, or like, like it's like, these are what you have, this is the dice you roll for it, here are your modifiers. And I'm like,
Mhm.
that's kind of rad because they really thought through what that means in their setting, and that's dope as hell. If you want to
Yeah.
do like setting specific stories in your system, go crazy hyper specific. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Like if someone out there is like, man, I wish there was a game for sports anime fans specifically for baseball. Ta-da! Like, there it is.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a question, probably the last question before we talk a little bit about Bella's comment.
Cool.
So as somebody who has played in your podcast, one of the things that I'm very impressed that you do is you get like, 2 to 4 people on board with a new system to play for the first time and record themselves. So I
Yeah.
know a lot of people, especially GMs, at their table tend to be like forever GMs. This is their kind of role in the friend group or whatever. And they're like, I want to move away from D&D, but everyone knows D&D and it's really hard to get people to like do this other thing. Can you give a few words of wisdom to those people of like how you go about trying to get people kind of inoculated into a new system so that they can give it a shot? You know what I mean?
Shit, yeah, when you put it that way, our show's concept is really insane. Yeah, I mean, like, it's true. We do a rotating cast every episode. So I'm literally messaging people like a month in advance to be like, hey, I like your steez. Do you want to come play this game you've never heard of on the internet for the first time with me? And I rarely get no's.
Yeah.
And, a lot of that is be excited about what you're presenting and don't make it sound like it's going to be a burden to do it. Something I like to tell people, which is true, I really do think about the cast we put together in correlation with the game we want to play. So in addition to reading constantly, I'm also listening to and watching several people's shows and streams and reading their tweets and etc. And I'll get something like, oh, I have this game called Hopes and Dreams that kind of has a Les Mis vibe to it. And my buddy Nick Perrin is a fellow theater nerd who very frequently revels in this whole anti-authoritarian thing. I think he'd dig this. So I ask Nick Perrin to come on the show and he says yes. And I do it so far in advance to give people the advantage of like, okay, I have a month to get caught up on this. I am in the chat with the people. I can ask any question I want. I guess the short answer is be excited, be available.
Yeah.
Like, I know it can be nerve-wracking to ask people to change something, so don't say anything to the effect of like, hey, I know this is really different and we normally do this and I'm sorry, but I'm really wanting to like, no. Just be excited about it.
Yeah.
Like, be like, hey, I thought of you guys when I read this. I think it'd be really fun if we played it. We've only got to do it once or twice. And if we like it, we can keep going. I just want to test something new, like pitch it as a one shot and then go from there. If your people like it, then they'll be cool. And if they're really your friends and you're nice and haven't been like a dick as their GM the whole time, they'll say yes.
Yeah, I would also say like in my experience in that specific thing, you sent out like the rules, but you also sent out something which I would encourage all GMs to do, which was these are the the necessary things that I need from you to run this game.
Yes.
Otherwise, we'll kind of learn it as we go, and don't worry, we'll take it slow to start. If you want to be more prepared, here's the rules. And I think that is always a really great way for GMs to approach their group as well, of sort of like guys, we learned D&D over the course of like 4 years as well. Like we're
We're still learning it.
Yeah, exactly.
You guys still ask me, what do I roll for that? You know, like
yeah, like I'm going to take care of you. It's fine. Just do
Yeah.
this stuff that I actually need you to do. And then you'll get someone like me in this specific example that's like, can I play like a man that had his brain transplanted into a hamster? And you're like, yeah, sure, whatever.
One of my all-time favorite GMM characters. Oh my god.
Yeah,
so
Hampstead,
funny.
Burn Smoke or whatever. Yeah, he was fun. Let's talk about Bella's Comet. This is a sort of a departure from the Game Master Monday format in that it is a longer form actual play. It's sort of its own product. You brought in some folks to really do this with you. Can you tell us a little bit about it and like why you branched out into this new thing?
Hell yeah. This was the brainchild of me and Leah, who is the DM for Slay the Stars.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been friends for like the better part of this year, I want to say. Slay the Stars, one of my favorite D&D podcasts that I was listening to before I even launched my show. So it's bananas she and I are even friends in the first place, let alone co-creators. And it was during the summer, and we were talking about like all of our plans of the summer and how we're kind of like a little burnt out and we're going to slow things down a little bit going forward. And because we slowed things down and our schedules were suddenly empty, we were joking around being like, what if we just made a podcast together? Whoops, it happened very fast. So it was born out of having this creator that I really respect. And I legitimately think Leah is one of the top 3 actual play DMs in the world. End of sentence. You know, like she's legitimately in my top 3. I have her above Brenna Lee Mulligan, and I will fight.
She's in the pantheon.
She's above the pantheon as far as I'm concerned. But you know, so we started like coming up with a concept together. And we, you know, thought of a twist that we thought would be a lot of fun to do in an actual play format. And we were like, we're going to do this. It'll be 12 episodes long. It'll end when it ends. And that's it. We walk away from it, and then it belongs to the ages. So that was the stuff that excited us. It was something like a limited series that we didn't have to take care of forever.
Yeah.
And we had a twist in mind that we wanted to do that we hadn't really heard in like an actual play format. I won't spoil it for you, but if you go listen to Bella's Comet, it happens in episode 6.
I'm very, I won't say any more on that as well, because it is a pretty cool moment, and I think that you should all go check it out. Is this something that you're going to be branching out into more and doing more like limited release podcasts? Is there anything you want to announce to the tabletops?
If you know something I don't know, I don't know. I go back and forth because part of me is like doing 2 podcasts at the same time was insane.
Yeah.
I did so much writing. I feel like this was a bad idea. But on the other hand, God, it was so much fun. And I get why people start long form like podcasts like this now, and I do have ideas for other ones. I've actually been reached out to by another podcast creator who's like, I'd like to do something similar to Bella's Comet with you, and I had to be like, I might die if I do another one right now. I swear to God, I might collapse in my office and never see light again. So
listen,
I'm not.
Grant, you just got to live fast and eat trash. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm the Alexander Hamilton of TTRPG podcasts, honestly. I'm just going to do as many as possible that get shot by one day. You know?
Yeah.
So the short answer is no, I have nothing to announce, and I have no official plans. But also, no, I'm not opposed to doing it again. We'll see.
Yeah. It's for the ages to decide. Grant,
Exactly.
This has been a real great conversation. As you know, I'm a huge fan of your stuff, and always really excited to chat with you. Can you tell the folks who are listening a little bit more about where they can find more about you, your projects, where they can follow you, all that kind of good stuff?
Absolutely. Game Master Monday is our primary podcast. We play a different one shot in a different system with a different cast every episode. It's available everywhere you enjoy podcasts. I checked every single place you can think of. Same for Bella's Comet. If you want something a little bit more serious, a little bit more sci-fi, a little bit more long form story. It's 12 episodes long. It's wrapping up, I think, in January. So if it's over by now, hey, go listen to the whole thing. If it's not, it's happening right now. That's also available everywhere you enjoy podcasts. That's Bella's with an apostrophe Comet. If you like my jokes, I'm on social media. You can follow us at Game Master MON on Twitter. Fuck you, Elon. It's still Twitter. And we're also on Blue Sky, Threads, and Instagram at Game Master Monday. And we have a Twitch channel, which we're going to be using like 5 times a year starting in 2024. So we're going to be doing every 5th Monday of a month. We'll do a live stream. So follow us there.
Yeah, I'm super excited about that too. I think that is going to be a cool new way for people to kind of get into the Game Master Monday orbit. So very excited about this next coming year. I think that everyone's going to be really impressed and like happy with what they get. Everything's just, just coming up, Grant, coming up Game Master Monday.
I'm wearing the flood shorts, baby. A huge honor for me. I've always loved tabletop, so I was thrilled you asked me to be on. So thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, we'll have you back some other time and we can talk about another aspect. And
yeah.
For everybody else, if you like Tabletopped or Game Master Monday, go to your podcatcher and type those words in. You will find us. We're there. You can also give us a follow, a like, a subscribe, a review. All of these things are free, and all of these things help so much. If you're wanting to do something that is not free, there's also Patreon. Tabletopped has a Patreon, patreon.com/tabletopped. We're going to be starting to do stuff. I'm going to start dropping some bonus episodes there. So we already have some like module stuff. Shade and Franco have been developing stuff to add on to your TTRPG experience, and we're going to be dropping that kind of stuff in there as well. So if you're interested, it starts for as low as $1 a month. All right, everyone. We'll see you next time on Tabletopped. And Grant, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.